So today is Saturday, July 29th. Today I'd like to take up case 14 in the Wumon Koan gateless barrier, Wumon Kan in Japanese. Nan Chuan kills a cat. A disturbing and important case. Master Nan Chuan found monks of the eastern and western halls arguing about a cat. He held up the cat and said, "Everyone, if you can say a word, I'll spare this cat. If you cannot, I will cut off its head." No one could say a word, so Nan Chuan cut the cat in two. That evening, Zhao Chu returned from outside, and Nan Chuan told him what happened. Zhao Chu removed a sandal from his foot, put it on his head, and walked out. Nan Chuan said, "If you would have been there, you would have saved the cat." His commentary, Wumen's commentary, "Tell me, what is the meaning of Zhao Chu putting the sandal on his head? If you can give a turning word here, you will see that Nan Chuan's challenge was not irresponsible. But if you cannot yet do this, beware." Wumen's verse, "Had Zhao Chu been there, he would have taken charge. He would have snatched away the sword, and Nan Chuan would have begged for his life." Of course, Nan Chuan was a very important teacher, Nan-sen in Japanese. Zhao Chu, his student and disciple, Joshu in Japanese, went on to become one of the greatest of all Zen masters. Putting a sandal on one's head was a sign of mourning in ancient China. That's just background. It's not the answer about what's the meaning of his putting a sandal on his head. So this is an important koan, but without accurate realization, it can become a disturbingly macho take on emptiness as separate from form, with predictably disastrous results. Given its dangers, we should approach it with attention and care, maybe even with caution. Ken Margaridge, a Zen teacher friend in Denver, once went to a sesshin with Nelson Foster Roshi, Aiken Roshi's heir. Asked by Nelson, "What koan would you like to work on?" Ken said, "I'd like to work on Nan Chuan Kills a Cat." And during the 7-day sesshin that they did together, even though Ken was already a teacher and had successfully worked on the case from both Kapleau Roshi and Aiken Roshi's perspectives, with our teacher, our mutual teacher, Dana and Henry Roshi, Nelson never accepted any of Ken's responses to the case. That's 7 days, 3 doksan a day with someone who's already a teacher. Daunting. When I worked on this with Danon, having already explored it several times with Kapleau Roshi, Danon opened up new territory essentially by having us look together into Nelson Foster Roshi's stance. Excuse me while I do some corrections on the fly. Nelson Foster, of course, is the teacher at Ring of Bone Zendo, the Zendo built by Gary Snyder and friends up in the Sierras. He insists that Nan Chuan, driven to a kind of dharma rage by what his students were doing with the cat, literally killed the cat. Many Zen teachers back off from such a position. Kapleau Roshi said that Nan Chuan mimed the killing, then released the cat, which is a position that Yasutani Roshi seems to have taken as well. Our challenge begins right here. Why does Nelson insist that Nan Chuan killed the cat? Contemporary teacher Gary Sishin Wick hedges. His take on this is that cats, or animals really, are killed every day for all kinds of trivial reasons, cosmetics, fashion, or slaughtered for food. Here, at least, an animal is killed for the worthy purpose of deepening human understanding. He sees this as an acceptable sacrifice like medical testing that saves human and animal lives alike. But what do you think? Danon refuses to accept this, as do I. I see no trade-off that makes this okay. How could Nan Chuan, a deeply awakened Buddhist teacher, kill a cat? Gary Wick's stance, and he is a good teacher, strikes me as an attempt to create an apology for what is indefensible. But what is clear is that everyone who encounters this koan is troubled by it, for it is troubling. The first of the 10 grave Buddhist precepts is, I resolve not to kill, but to cherish all life. The 3 general resolutions of classical Buddhism are, I resolve to do good, I resolve to avoid evil, I resolve to save the many beings. Why then does Wu Men include this heinous violation of the precepts and resolutions, the very core of the way of the Bodhisattva, in a collection of koans meant to help us awaken to our innate compassion and wisdom? Wouldn't it have been wiser of him to simply hide it away? What does he see in this case that helps us open the way? And how will we realize this and express it ourselves? This is the central challenge. For the koan also can open a door onto a grave misunderstanding, namely, that realization of emptiness now means anything goes. That emptiness gives us license to act as we please, which would be a fearfully shallow understanding arising from a very one-sided realization. Emptiness is not a thing. Emptiness is form itself, revealed as fundamentally empty of all relative comparative labels and views. No me and you, up and down, hot and cold. All such beliefs arise out of a comparison of 2 things. A toothpick is large compared to an ant, but tiny compared to a redwood tree. So size is relative. Large and small are relative, not absolute. But awakening to the absolute worth of each thing, which is not a concept, but a realization, does not throw away up, down, hot, cold, me, you. Not at all. If red and green are thrown away with the relative world, try crossing the street and avoid getting struck by an oncoming car. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. It also sets us on a dark road ethically, that the enlightened, those who have realized the absolute, non-dual, non-relative, can now do as they please, is just a step away from theft, murder, stepping ahead in line, and killing a cat. Holding everything to be one-sidedly empty of selfhood or consequence is not Zen. Roshi Kapleau used to say, Zen is not above morality, nor morality below Zen. How then could an important Zen master like Nan Chuan reduce the mysterious life of a living creature to simple expedience in his teaching? Such an explanation or apologia for Nan Chuan's action then totally, and I do mean totally, misses the mark. I'm still horrified today by something I saw back in high school. One day in biolab, our biology teacher brought out a sweet white lab rat and then broke its neck, killing it in front of us. Once dead, he had us dissect it, all in the name of learning and science. But what he really taught was that life was terribly cheap and that a rat was expendable and compassion mere sentiment. He didn't just kill a rat, a sweet and inquisitive little creature. He killed himself and he killed us. For what he taught us was not the science of the wonder of rat anatomy, but that life itself, the great mystery, was without value. something to be thrown away if we felt like it for the flimsiest of reasons. To my mind, he abdicated his responsibility as a teacher. Has Nan Chuan done the same? First off, Danon Roshi agrees with Nelson Roshi. Nan Chuan killed the cat. He didn't mime it, so he doesn't try to apologize or explain or suggest that it might have ultimate teaching value and so could, from a certain enlightened perspective, be seen as good or as some kind of wise thing. Not at all. He wipes all those evasions away. Once we accept that the killing really happened, we can also accept that something serious is going on here. Nan Chuan, a great Zen Buddhist teacher, killed a cat. It was a real death, a painful one. What is real life? We cannot remain complacent. We must question Nan Chuan. If we accept what he's done, we find ourselves in a cult, passively accepting whatever a teacher does as valid teaching. That is guru practice, and if it is Zen, count me out. Mistakes have been made by supposedly enlightened teachers. Projection, transference, power dynamics, and gender disparities have led to harmful and painful messes here in the West, as Asian Zen teachers started gathering students and Western ones received transmission. To unfailingly follow a teacher without applying critical standards is not wise or Buddhist. The Buddha himself said, don't do something because I say you should, or because tradition reveres it. Only do it because it accords with your own reason and thoughtful judgment. In short, we are responsible and shouldn't choose to be infantilized by a teacher. Fortunately, this is the Buddha's view, and is also the view of Zen tradition, which aims to help us stand on our own legs. Of course, in the beginning, faith is important, and after checking a teacher out, we should commit and give what he or she recommends a solid chance. Skepticism is not the point. Intelligence and thought is. What about Nan Chuan? By all accounts, he was both deeply realized and deeply skillful. How could he have floundered so? Taking up this koan is like grabbing hold of a live wire while standing in a puddle. Despite the risk, we must do what we can to grasp what is actually going on. Hold on a second. First, the monks were arguing. They were not discussing. This is what sets the action in motion. What were they arguing about? That leads Nan Chuan to murder a cat. Why? Why does he do this? And why does Nan Chuan feel he must do something? Remember, these are fully ordained monastics dedicated to practice realization, living and practicing in a monastery. Why is this argument such a flashpoint for Nan Chuan, their teacher? After clarifying this, we must present our understanding of Nan Chuan. This is always the challenge in Zen. Not to talk about, but to be, to show. Yet to illustrate what happened by simply miming killing a cat won't do. How do you understand Nan Chuan? And how do you show that? When I was writing picture books, I purposefully left out descriptions so that the illustrator would have room to bring the scene alive. If I told everything as I did when writing novels, the illustrator would be tied to the text. It would create a dead book. By leaving descriptions out and just supplying narrative, the book would only exist in the reader's mind once they'd put the words and images together, creating something intimate, something new and alive. A koan's challenge is analogous. We are not being asked to show Nanchuan killing a hapless cat. That's an illustration of what happened. How do you see Nanchuan? Show that. Further, there's doing something mindfully, completely, even mindlessly in the best sense, with no separation whatsoever, free us from ethical constraints. Mindfulness without a spiritual context, like the precepts, runs into a serious problem. Assassins can kill mindfully. Businesses make a killing thanks to proficiency in mindfulness. Is that a valid aim? What about the first of the 10 grave Buddhist precepts? I resolve not to kill, but to cherish all life. Underneath all precepts is an ancient commitment, ahimsa, a determination to cause the least possible harm. This understanding goes very far back and underlies Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, kosher laws, and even the old eye for an eye is actually a way to limit revenge to what is equal and appropriate. It is not a commandment to enact revenge, as it's been misunderstood. Indigenous cultures who depend on hunting understand the dire implications of taking the life of others to live, and so offer prayers and ceremonies to offer thanks and avert disaster. To be alive is to cause harm. Seeing the inescapable consequences of our own basic needs for food, housing, and community, we humans have, through the ages, made a determination that our presence on Earth should cause the least harm. Sadly, our appetite for more and more has shredded that. Capitalism is not evil, but immature application of it has caused terrible harm to the planet, to other species, to indigenous peoples, and to ourselves. Even as our goods accumulate, services multiply, and lifespans lengthen, something deep down just hurts and hurts. Even Zen people have floundered here, thinking that an experience of emptiness frees us from ethical responsibilities. Everything is empty, there's no self or other, so I'm free, meaning free to do what I want rather than free to fully accept all that comes my way. And then down the old slide into self-centered self-destruction we willingly and mistakenly go. A weak, one-sided realization, as I've said, is not enough yet. Not yet enough, as Aiken Roshi used to say. Thinking I'm enlightened is a Zen sickness. While mature bodhisattvas may act in ways that seem to violate precepts, they do it from a ground of selfless compassion and reverence for all life. They do what they do to protect and promote life, not to harm it. Though from the absolute perspective, there is no one who kills and no one and no thing killed. Anyone who takes refuge in such thinking to justify harmful actions is a fool or liar or worse. Nanchuan cannot take refuge there, nor can we. Nor can we find a model of behavior in his action. How do we show true understanding of Nanchuan's killing of the cat? Once we do, the rest of the case falls into place. However, a substantial challenge lies ahead, and Wu Men's commentary nails it. Tell me, what is the meaning of Chao Chu putting the sandal on his head? If you can give a turning word, here you will see that Nanchuan's challenge was not irresponsible. But if you cannot yet do this, beware. Putting a sandal on the head, as I've said, was a sign of mourning in ancient China. But this is a clue. It is not the answer. Neither mourning nor putting a sandal on the head will give us the actual answer to Wu Men's challenge, which must itself be shown. We must actually show the vital truth of Zhao Chu's saving action. How? How does Zhao Chu, Nanchuan's talented and deeply realized disciple, destined to become one of the greatest of all Zen teachers, resolve his teacher's life and death challenge and save the cat? What does he do? What's going on with the sandal and his walking out, which is all that Wu Men reveals of what happened? It's like when I was writing picture books. I didn't tell it all. The illustrator has to show it, not just illustrate what's already been said. That's the challenge here. All that Wu Men shows is the exterior, the minimal exterior. We must fill it in and bring it, the cat, Zhao Chu, and ourselves to life. Putting a sandal on your head and pretending to walk out won't do it. Again, you'd be just illustrating the words, not revealing the meaning. Wu Men mercilessly challenges us, demanding, show how you, as the brilliantly awakened Zhao Chu, save the cat. And what is that turning word, that vital statement that wrests life from death and turns us from our habitually deadening perspective to open the mind to living truth? Wu Men's verse. Had Zhao Chu been there, he would have taken charge. He would have snatched away the sword, and Nanchuan would have begged for his life. What does Zhao Chu do here, and why would Nanchuan have to beg for his life? Koans, as Aiken Roshi has said, are the folklore of Zen. In folk tales, giants routinely grind bones to make bread. In this koan, a Zen master kills a cat. The narrative intent is the same, to rouse a deeply felt visceral response touching on the serious business of our own life and death. Folk tales remind us that giants, even if not literally real, are real nonetheless and quite capable of causing actual harm. Look at our world if you doubt it. Giant corporations treated as living entities wreak havoc on legal systems and environments, grinding our bones to make their bread. Dictators and tyrants with gigantically bloated egos do the same. Folklore and myth show not fact, but eternal truths of our own psyches. Unlike facts, which must be said in such and such specific time or place, the truths of story hold up for all times, all places. The koan of killing the cat reveals that our thinking, our very sense of ourselves, is no childish game, but has the dramatic power to give or take life. How shall we save the cat? For save it we must. The first of our great vows for all is the many beings are numberless. I vow to save or free them all. This challenge arises at the conclusion of every formal period of Zazen. How do we make it real? How lift it from its coffin of words so that it lives in our own daily living, day by day? Do we bring things to life or do we kill them? You can kill with a word or a glance as well as with a sword. Yet a word or a smile can also give life. The verse from the 10th and final Zen oxherding picture, entering the market with helping hands, says, Without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he brings to life. This is no simple task. Indeed, sometimes it can seem hopeless. How can I save all beings when I can hardly even save myself? Should I set the vow aside until I myself am fully enlightened and do it then? No, you shouldn't. So what do you do? We have ongoing daily practice, and koan practice especially forces us to act, to respond, to try and fail and get back up after falling down and try again. This is a challenging practice, drawing us out of our habitual refuges of pride, shyness, self-doubt, anxiety, anger, getting us to live, to respond, to present, to perform. Through our practice, we set out upon a transformative path where intuition lives and logic and reason, while remaining deeply useful tools, can at last release their claim on the driver's seat. If we are sunk in an underworld of me and here and everyone and everything else out there, as Wuman says in his verse to case 1 of the Gateless Barrier, Zhao Chu's dog, then body is lost. Life is lost, for we kill ourselves and our world. Caught in a maze of self-interest and self-concern, we are unable to respond to what is before us. The world withers. Yeats wrote, Locke sank into a swoon, the garden died. God took the spinning jenny out of his side. What happens in our minds has consequences for good or ill, life or death. Philip Capro wrote in his diary, each morning been climbing the hill back of the main hall for a wide screen view of Mount Fuji. Yesterday skipped my meditation because of a headache, and Fuji looked somber and lifeless. Today, after a couple of good hours of good meditation in a chair, it's grand and soaring again. A remarkable discovery. I have the power of life and death over Fuji. That's from his diary in the 3 Pillars of Zen. What makes our vow to save all beings meaningful? What is the turning word? To come to a place where we might think, I've got it, is not enough. Even to have it in Zen is not enough. We must throw it all away, throw even our own self away, and step forward from there. Then cats and crows, trees, people, mountains, and rivers all are saved. To repeat something I've shared before, Gary Snyder on koans. The intention of a koan is to make people who are bright in an ordinary way, or ordinary people who are bright in an odd way, work harder and go further into themselves. The language presents an opportunity to perceive a metaphor that calls one not to thought, but to work. Work is performance. Performance is embodiment, and not subject to ordinary rational analysis. It must spring forth freely and spontaneously, as does life for most working people who are always dealing with the immediate. That's one kind of koan. So in a way, we're not talking about language, we're talking about the theater of life. If we are not clear then, like the monks at Nanchuan's monastery, we may have already inadvertently killed a cat. Rather carelessly, thoughtlessly. We do some version of this every day. We kill time. We get caught up in, I'm right, you're wrong. We pull leaves off trees as we pass them by, and pluck blades of grass when sitting in a park. We stumble blindly, inattentively into walls, stub our toes, bang our heads, knock over tables and lamps, spill our tea onto a friend's shirt, and drive our cars, all while lost in thought and emotion, endangering everyone and everything around us. And sometimes sunk in inattention, we may literally kill a dog, a deer, a rabbit that darts out into the road, that, had we been present, we might have seen and saved. Yet even as we fail, we can take up the practice of 1, 2, 3, of just this breath, just this koan, repeating it, digging into it again and again, and bringing life even to Mount Fuji, as Roshi Kapleau discovered. We take up our vow where and as we are and present our vital turning word. How do we save a cat? Save our world, save ourselves. Fundamentally, our practice is the foundation. We come forward from there with the ability to not only answer such questions as the age of the cat and its color, but to live a little better, which means more intimately in touch with life itself. Our August break might be a good time to work on all of this, practicing now on your own, without support by teacher, temple, sangha. See if you can find ways to actualize your own potential to realize and give life in your life, just as it is. Work on it. I think you will find it both challenging and rewarding.